We've all heard it, right? That our brain's potential is infinite. That if you just find the right hack or the right supplement, you can become limitless. We see it in movies, we hear it from productivity gurus, and we chase it with an endless stream of apps, all designed to unlock 100% of our brain. But what if that's all a lie? What if the idea that your brain has no limits is the very thing holding you back from being smarter, faster, and more creative? The science points to a reality that's hardwired into us, and it's not what the gurus are selling. We've been told this story that our mind is a muscle we can endlessly strengthen, that we can push it to do anything. But your brain isn't some magical, mystical object. It's a biological organ. And like every organ, it has rules. It has constraints. And what if I told you that understanding those constraints, not fighting them, is the real secret to unlocking its power? To see why the limitless brain is a myth, we have to accept a basic truth. Your brain is a physical thing, operating in the real world. It's made of cells, it follows the laws of biology, and most importantly, it runs on a surprisingly tight energy budget. Think about it this way. Your brain makes up only about 2% of your body weight, but it burns through a staggering 20% of your body's total energy. That's over 100 times what your smartphone needs. And what's fascinating is how constant that energy use is. Whether you're solving a complex problem or just staring at a wall, your brain is burning a steady amount of fuel. A huge chunk of that energy, up to 75%, is just for basic background processing and sending signals. It's an incredibly expensive organ to run. This is our first big clue. The brain didn't evolve to be some infinite supercomputer. It evolved to be ruthlessly efficient. Evolution doesn't like waste. This high energy cost means that every single function has been fine-tuned over millennia to do the most with the least. This brings us to the first myth we need to bust. The idea that you can just turn on more brain power whenever you feel like it. Your brain is always on, and it's already running close to full capacity just to keep you alive and aware. The extra energy you use for a tough mental task is tiny, maybe an 8% increase at most. There is no secret stash of 90% of your brain just sitting there, waiting for you. The real game isn't about finding more power, it's about using the power you already have more intelligently. So, how does the brain manage this tight budget? It sets strict limits on its most expensive jobs. Let's start with one you struggle with every single day, your working memory. Working memory is your brain's mental countertop. It's the temporary space where you hold and juggle information, like remembering a phone number just long enough to type it, or keeping track of a conversation. For decades, you may have heard about the magical number 7, plus or minus 2, which suggested we could hold about 7 things in our short-term memory. But more recent research, especially from neuroscientist Dr. Nelson Cowan, shows a much tighter picture. When you strip away all the little tricks and rehearsals we use, the true core capacity of our working memory is actually much smaller. It's about 3 to 5 meaningful items, or chunks of information. That's it. 3 to 5 things. That's the raw processing power you're working with at any given moment. This isn't a software problem you can fix with a mindset hack. It's a hardware feature. Trying to consciously handle more than that is like trying to play a brand new video game on a 10-year-old laptop. The system will lag, it will crash, and you'll just get frustrated. A 2025 study from Brown University even suggested this limit is there on purpose, to keep the brain from getting confused and to help us learn better. Holding too much at once actually makes it harder for the brain to use the information well. Ever walk into a room and completely forget why you're there? Or try to follow a complicated recipe, only to have your mind go blank after the 3rd step? That's not a personal failure. That is your brain's working memory limit. Live in action. It's a biological bottleneck. This bottleneck gets even more obvious when we tackle the second myth, the illusion of multitasking. In our world, multitasking is worn like a badge of honor. We answer emails during meetings, scroll social media while watching a movie, and text while walking. We feel like we're being so productive. But the neuroscience is brutally clear. Multitasking isn't real. Your brain isn't built to do multiple attention-heavy tasks at once. What you're actually doing is called task switching. Your prefrontal cortex is just frantically jumping your focus from one thing to another. As neuroscientist Daniel Levitin puts it, you're not paying attention to everything at once. You're like a clumsy plate spinner, just trying to keep each one from crashing. And every single one of those switches has a biological cost. It takes more energy to switch to a new task because your brain has to shut down the rules for the old one and load up the rules for the new one. This process slows you down, makes you more likely to make mistakes, and floods your brain with the stress hormone, cortisol. Studies from Stanford have even shown that people who do a lot of media multitasking actually get worse at memory and attention, even when they're trying to focus on just one thing. In a way, by constantly trying to do everything at once, you're training your brain to be more distracted. So, the brain is energy hungry, it has a tiny active workspace, and it can only really focus on one thing at a time. This might sound a little bleak. It might feel like you've been sold a sports car, only to find it has the engine of a lawnmower. But what if these limitations aren't bugs? What if they're actually features? And this is where the story gets really good. If our brains have these hardwired limits, does that mean we're stuck? Not at all. In fact, learning to embrace these limits is the key to your actual cognitive power. The lie isn't that your brain is powerful. The lie is that it's limitless. Real strength comes from mastering your limits, not pretending they don't exist. Let's look at learning. The limitless approach is cramming, right? Trying to force-feed your brain a massive amount of information in one sitting, just hoping it sticks. This goes directly against how your working memory is designed and leads to something called cognitive overload. Educational psychologist John Sweller developed cognitive load theory, which explains that because our working memory is so small, overwhelming, it is the worst way to learn. When a task demands more than your working memory can handle, you don't learn, you just get frustrated. The information never gets processed correctly, so it can't move into your long-term memory. But what happens when you work with your brain's limits? You use strategies like spaced repetition and chunking. Chunking is just grouping related information into a single unit. It's why remembering the letters FBI is easier than FB and I separately. You've just hacked your working memory by compressing 3 items into one. All effective learning is about creating these rich, connected chunks. Spaced repetition works with your brain's natural tendency to forget. Instead of one marathon study session, you review information at increasing intervals over time. This tells your brain, hey, this is important, and it strengthens the neural pathways, making it much more likely to be stored for the long haul. It's a slower, more deliberate approach, but it's infinitely more effective. Now let's apply this to productivity. The limitless myth tells you to multitask, keep all your tabs open, and reply to every notification instantly. It creates a culture of frantic, shallow work. But what does a limits-based approach look like? It looks like deep work. When you accept that your attention is a finite resource and that task switching is exhausting, you can give yourself permission to protect your focus. This means monotasking. It means setting aside blocks of time for one important thing and getting rid of distractions. When you do this, you let your brain work the way it was designed to. You avoid the cost of task switching and can pour all of your mental energy into the problem at hand. Instead of spinning 10 plates badly, you carry 1 plate perfectly. This leads to higher quality work, done in less time, with way less stress. Finally, let's talk about something we all fear: forgetting. The limitless mindset sees forgetting as a failure. Why would a perfect brain lose information? But from a biological standpoint, forgetting isn't a bug. It's one of your brain's most brilliant features. The process is called synaptic pruning. When you're a child, your brain creates an explosion of connections, or synapses, way more than you'll ever need. Then, in a process that continues your whole life, your brain starts to systematically get rid of the connections that aren't being used. It's literally a use it or lose it system. Active connections get stronger, while weak or redundant ones are pruned away. This might sound destructive, but it's actually a genius process of optimization. It's like a gardener trimming a rose bush to get stronger, healthier flowers. By cutting away the noise and the unused connections, the brain makes its remaining networks faster and more efficient. It streamlines itself. Forgetting old, irrelevant information is what allows the brain to stay flexible and make room for new, more important learning. An inability to prune properly is even linked to conditions like autism, where a brain with too many connections can lead to sensory overload. So the next time you forget a trivial fact, don't think of it as your memory failing you. Think of it as your brain's elegant, built-in maintenance system, working silently to keep your mind sharp and ready for what truly matters. So, the myth of the limitless brain, while it sounds inspiring, actually sets us up for frustration. It pushes us to fight our own biology, to cram when we should space things out, to multitask when we should be focusing, and to fear forgetting when we should embrace it. The real science tells a more beautiful story. Our brains aren't infinite. They are biological organs, shaped by evolution to be incredibly efficient, not endlessly powerful. They're constrained by a tight energy budget, a tiny working memory, and an attention system that prefers to do one thing at a time. But these aren't weaknesses. We've learned that these limits are actually the source of our greatest cognitive strengths. They force us to focus, to prioritize, and to find smarter ways to learn and work. Understanding that 4-item limit of your working memory frees you from the guilt of feeling overloaded and points you toward better ways to learn. Understanding the myth of multitasking gives you permission to turn off your phone, protect your attention, and do the deep, meaningful work you're truly capable of. And understanding the genius of forgetting helps you see it not as a failure, but as a feature that keeps your mind agile. So the power of your brain isn't a lie. The lie is that this power is limitless. True strength comes not from trying to break your biological rules, but from understanding them, respecting them, and building your life around them. It's about shifting from a brute force brain hacker to an elegant cognitive artist, working beautifully with the material you actually have. Let's stop chasing the myth of the superbrain. Let's stop feeling guilty for not being able to do it all at once. Instead, let's get curious about the operating manual for our own minds. That is where true high performance is hiding. If this idea changed how you see things, and you want more science-backed truths to help you master your mind, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And I'd love to know in the comments, which of these biological limits surprised you the most?